Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakah Hakwadash, Barakatah. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well. And peace and salutations to Akim out there pushing this word and truth. This is the Brother I with another video, and I'll be using an article from RT.com titled Death of US Dollar. China launches Petro Yuan to challenge greenback's dominance. Slakia, brothers. And with the launching of this Petro Yuan, as it says, it'll challenge the petrodollar's dominance in the world. And if you've ever kept up with the news or history, you'll see that any country that ever tried to create their own currency to go around the petrodollar, the U.S. Overthrew the government of that country and left that country in complete chaos and disarray. Just think of the war in Iraq with Saddam Hussein, and also Muammar Gaddafi when he tried to Libya, when he tried to push that gold dinar. The U.S. is not just going to let the petrodollar go down so easily, especially from a major rival like China. And also, recently you've had the U.S. expel Russian diplomats from their country, as well as some of their allies, like the UK and the EU, doing the same, getting rid of Russian diplomats. And then you can't forget John Bolton becoming the National Security Advisor, and he's a major Iran hawk pushing for war with Iran. So you've got all these different pieces coming together to create the turmoil that will lead to World War III, as well as a lot of prophecies being fulfilled. It's a very beautiful time, brothers. The highly anticipated yuan-backed crude oil futures have been launched in Shanghai. China is the world's biggest oil consumer, with eyes on rival benchmarks Brent and WTI, as well as the U.S. currency. Trading of the new oil futures contracts for September settlement started on the Shanghai International Energy Exchange at 440.20 yuan, or $69.70 per barrel, reports Chinese daily The South China Morning Post. Some 18,540 lots have reportedly been sold and purchased so far. The long-awaited step evoked a surge in global prices for oil, with Brent crude soaring to $71 a barrel for the first time since 2015. U.S. crude benchmark West Texas Intermediate reached the highest level in 3 years at $66.55 per barrel before retreating to $65.53 per barrel. Experts see China's yuan-dominated contracts as historic, as the new futures symbolize the first time that foreign investors can access a Chinese commodity market. The launch ends years of setbacks and delays since the country's first attempt at listing the securities in 1993. At the same time, the Petro Yuan launch is seen as a blow to the U.S. dollar that has been weakening in recent months. Nations are losing their confidence in the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar is the predominant settlement currency for oil futures contracts. On Monday, the greenback slipped to a 16-month low against the Japanese yen, but remained steady against a basket of 6 major currencies. Chinese authorities have reportedly accelerated the launch amid growing crude imports. Last year, the country outpaced the U.S. as the world's #1 importer of oil. That's very significant, because up until recently, as it says, the U.S. was the biggest importer of oil, and with them being the biggest importer of oil, that predicated the importance of the petrodollar and gave Saudi Arabia confidence to sell their oil through the petrodollar, as well as the U.S. sending military assets to Saudi Arabia and having their military as a protector of Saudi Arabia. But now that you've got the U.S. trying to get into the exporter market by selling their shale oil, Saudi Arabia obviously doesn't want a competitor, so it would make sense for them to start selling their oil in the gold-backed Petro Yuan to undermine the U.S. In the end, it's us all just business. Thus, the contracts may not only help to win some control over pricing from the major international benchmarks, but also promote the use of Chinese currency in global trade. You see, the greenback will get weaker as soon as other nations have a real credible alternative to it. Ann Lee, adjunct professor of economics and finance at the New York University and author of the book What the U.S. Can Learn from China, told RT, "It is more of a game changer for the U.S. As soon as other nations have a real credible alternative to the US dollar, they can dump dollars and switch to the yuan, which can spark a dollar crisis, which it will. If that happens, not only will there be inflation from the tariffs, but also from the flood of dollars, said Lee. And a lot of these nations are itching for that real credible alternative because, as it says in Habakkuk 2, verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, how long? And all these countries of the world are sick of America being a bully and pushing them around economically and militarily. You have to remember that when the U.S. wants resources from another country, they'll go into that country, overthrow their officials, and set up their own puppet government with men that only care about placating to the U.S. at the detriment of their own people. And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay, and that clay means debt, and the U.S. is known as a debt empire, because if you ever heard or read of the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman, the U.S. would send the U.S. would send companies to developing countries, and those countries, brothers, those companies would build up infrastructure in those countries, and since those countries' currencies didn't match the value of the U.S. dollar, they could never pay back the debts to those companies, so they would end up having to sell a lot of their natural resources and assets to the U.S., in effect turning them into a vassal state. And that affected a lot of Central and South American countries, which are still paying back that debt to this day. And I'm going to go to definition of clay real quick.
Strong's H, 5671, avteet.
Avteet, weight of pledges, heavy debts. And as it said right here, where is it? It'll spark with this Petro Yuan could spark a dollar crisis. And if that happens, not only will there be inflation from the tariffs, but also from the flood of dollars. And with so many countries turning to that Petro Yuan and sending those petro dollars back to the U.S., that'll lower the value of the U.S. dollar, causing inflation, and a lot of people will realize just how useless the U.S. dollar is because it's a fiat currency. It's not backed up by anything but the U.S. military, and with that, it'll lead to an economy crash, and will cause a lot of civil unrest, which will be martial law because at that point, all the stores will be ransacked for food and goods, so people will start turning on each other and going into an animalistic state. Which brings me to 2 Esdras chapter 15, and I'm going to start at verse 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, Jacob's trouble, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. Not just Edomites, the so-called white people fighting each other, think a Republican versus Democrat, but also different races fighting each other. Jacob, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans fighting Esau, and other of these nations fighting Esau, and Esau fighting those other nations as well. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes. These people in desperation are not going to want to hear what some weak politician has to say in those times, and if they get their hands on them, they're going to have some fun with those politicians that have been lying to them all this time. In the course of their actions shall stand in their power. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. Martial law. Everything's going to be on lockdown. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, and the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. And unless you're in the truth of this knowledge, you're definitely going to be afraid. You're going to be terrified because you'll have no understanding of what's going on. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their house with the sword, and spoil their goods, because of the lack of bread, and for great tribulation. There's going to be great famines out here. You're eventually going to see cannibalism too, and once people can't find any other people to eat, they're going to start eating themselves as well. And this is exactly what the elites want, because with such turmoil, that will allow them to bring in that mark of the beast, which is that RFID microchip. They'll be able to come in as that hero on the hill with the sun shining behind him and saying, look, if you get this chip, you'll be able to get food and shelter and clothing. which brings me to Revelation chapter 13, start at verse 16. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And what kind of it would take a pretty major event to cause as it says, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark, such as an economic collapse and just turmoil out here with people fighting each other for food and such as that. So, brothers, I hope this video was edifying. We're almost out of here. Ababa Ball and Shalom.